And when you can make a change at an emotional level, then the beliefs change and the beliefs drive new positive behaviors that you do want.
Welcome to the Juggling the Chaos of Recovery podcast, where we focus on health and wellness and overcoming all types of addictions. You're in the right place if you're a mom, dad, sibling, or caregiver who has a loved one who is or was struggling with an eating disorder or any other kind of addiction. In a time where everything seems heavy, I'm here to bring you a very real yet lighthearted take on what the heck we're all supposed to do with our lives while we care for our loved ones who are struggling. One thing holds true throughout it all. You can't juggle the chaos without smiling. At least a little bit. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Moira Gorski, and I have a wonderful special guest here today with me, Sara Raymond, and we connected through some of the ways that I've mentioned before that people connect with me, and I love to talk with my friends and colleagues and people that I know, but I also love to be introduced to new people, and especially they always seem to come across my desk, if you will, at the best time, and things that I am really loving to learn about and really want to learn about. And Sara is really no exception. So Sara Raymond is a trained hypnotherapist. She loves Pilates, yoga, meditation. She is the founder of the Mindfulness movement. She has a podcast. She just really helps people develop a positive mindset for life and also look at, again, limiting beliefs, red light stories. You've heard me talk about this on this podcast, and just she's really committed to a life of helping people break those cycles of, what's happening, those 6 inches between our ears, what's happening in our mind. And so I'm really excited to talk with Sara today. Welcome to my podcast, Sara. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to, like you said, have the opportunity to connect with someone new and chat with you. So thank you.
Yeah, you are very welcome. So let's get right into it. So hypnotherapy, how did you, we always start with the story. So how did you come to be involved with that, or the yoga, the meditation? How did that come to be as something that you're really interested and passionate about in your life?
Sure. I would say I've always been interested in helping people. Even as a kid, I was kind of the nurturing one. I am the only girl in my family. I have 2 brothers, and it was sort of like, I took care of people. I babysat when I was a kid, and originally I thought I was going to be a pediatrician, but I'm not so great at the sciences, and so that wasn't the route to go. But before all of the things that you listed, I was actually a kindergarten teacher. So again, more nurturing and helping people. And I have 2 kids, and that, like, I just love being of service, of helping people. But growing up, I was raised in a family and a community that, everything was kind of planned out, or there were certain expectations of the journey of your life, right? You finish high school, you go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have a family. And I did all those things. And I didn't even consider if that was what I wanted or not. But after college, I had just started teaching, and I was very young. I was about 22. I got married. I had my daughter, and I stopped teaching at that point. And I think I was really just thrown into that life very, very early. So while my peers were maybe, finding themselves, understanding what their values are, what was important to them, what they wanted to do with their life, I was a wife and a young mother. And I didn't really ever consider, well, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want my future to look like? So fast forward to my early 30s, that was probably the first time I really ever considered who I am, what I love, what I want to do. And that was really what brought me to meditation and hypnosis, was to find my inner voice or my confidence and kind of tune out the voices of other people in my head that were telling me well, this is what you should do, and this is what's expected of you. And when I was able to tune those voices out and really be able to hear my own voice, which I would say is still a little bit of a challenge for me, but that's what brought me to hypnosis and meditation, was that desire to understand myself and build confidence in my authenticity, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I completely relate to that. I remember when we moved to the suburb that I'm living in now, which is outside of Chicago. We had, I married in our late 20s. We both are the same age, and moved out to the suburbs, started having kids, and joined a play group, joined a health club, and started to go, and we chose to put my career on hold and stay at home, and, started to go to other people's homes and get to know other people. And it was just kind of like, I remember coming home and saying to my husband, like, oh my gosh, you should see Laura's house, or you should see Fran's house. It's just like, and I started to feel like, oh my gosh, like what we have is like nothing, which is not true at all. But again, we live in a beautiful area, a beautiful suburb, upper middle class. And it was that like, wow, looking at that comparison thing that really is the thief of all joy, right? To say like, oh my gosh, maybe we're doing something wrong here. And I even remember my husband saying to me at one time, like, do you really want to be a stay-at-home mom? Or not that way, but because I was saying, oh, I love being a mom. And he's like, really? But it was like, not that I did love it, but I also had 3 kids in 6 years. So it's like, I was really overwhelmed with that. So maybe I was seemingly like, I wasn't really happy, but yeah, I get that. I was raised also in a very conservative, Christian, wonderful home. And it's kind of thing. You went to college, you got married, maybe you got your MRS degree, right? And when you go outside of that, or even have some of the thoughts of going outside of that in conversations, you can be a bit shunned or looked at a little differently, and questions about, what are you doing? Why aren't you just being a mom or staying a teacher, that kind of thing.
Yeah. One of the things that really helped me in the mom realm was to understand that, being a mom is going to look different for every single person, and the ability to really look at yourself and understand how you want to show up as a mother. You have that choice, right? You don't have to do it like everyone else. And I know that when my mom was, when I was a kid and she was being a mom of 3 young children, and we were all born very close, like a year to year and a half apart, so 3 kids in diapers and car seats all at the same time. Like, that was really hard for her. And she was able to recognize that in order for her to be the best mom that she could be, she needed to be going to work and like have her own identity. And, that's not true for everyone, but to be able to look at yourself and say, okay, this is what I need as an individual, as a person, to then be able to show up and be the type of mom that I want to be. And just give yourself that permission to do that, even if that's not what, your neighbor is doing, or your sister, or whoever.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, we talk about that with our kids here with the high school. We're done with the school system after many, many years, but we said that many times. It's a great school system, wonderful schools that the kids have gone through to, but it's kind of like, okay, you go through it, you take the AP classes, you apply to all these colleges, you try to get all the scholarships, you're the football player and the show choir and the blah, 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 all of that. Well, what happens if none of that resonates with you, if you don't want to do that? I mean, it starts there. And I saw it with my children. We have a couple of kids. Well, I have 4 children, but we have a couple of kids that that's not the path that they're taking. And our youngest, we'll get to hypnotherapy in a second, but our youngest is leaving in a few weeks to go into the Air Force. And we have cool program at our high schools around here called TCD, which is Technical Center of DuPage. We live in DuPage County. And it's a place that starting your junior year, you can go and learn the trades, and you can learn culinary, and you can learn early childhood education. And so that's what he chose to do. School wasn't really his thing. Never, it isn't now. And, but he wanted to become a mechanic. And somebody talked to him about the fact that he could go into the Air Force, be a mechanic on all those big planes and helicopters. That's what he wants to do. He's so excited. It's so, I tell people in this town when I talk to them, they're like, wow, really? That's pretty cool. Like, I didn't even know that they could do that. And some people don't even know about that TCD program. It's like, it should be talked about more, because as our kids are growing up, it's like, let's expose them to other things. Like, where's the home ec? Where's all of the shop classes and things like that? Not everybody's going to want to do it, but there are some that do. Right. And it can start there and help to set that foundation of, you don't have to fit into this mold all the time that everybody's doing.
Right. Yeah, I agree completely. My daughter fit very well into the traditional school setting. And she just left for college this fall, and she's thriving. This works very well for her. But my son, he's younger, and he's not a in the box kind of kid. And, kudos to you for looking at your children each individually and seeing what they need, and being the parent that is willing to facilitate finding those programs that will really nourish and support each child individually. And I think that that's phenomenal. And, knowing we're working with people that are adults now and hearing their childhood stories and their experiences and the beliefs that they developed about themselves because of those experiences. I wish there were more parents like you to really see their children for who they are and support that and nourish their kind of their own soul, if you will,
Yeah.
So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's one of those things that's come to us, again, a little bit of a surprise at times. And even our second son, he tried school, and then he tried work, and then he tried school, and he tried work. And in June, he left, and I said, go to Montana. It's a long story, and we don't have to get into that now, but he had an opportunity to go to Montana. We said, go for the summer, because he just needed to get out of here. And I think part of it was that, like, oh, well, his friends were gone. Everybody's doing this. And who am I? I'm just staying here. I can't really figure out my life. It's like, go someplace. So thank God this opportunity came up, and somebody was giving him a job. Somebody was giving him a place to stay, and he could go build houses for the summer. I said, just go. Well, he hasn't been home since. And I'm excited to see him in a couple of weeks. And he's still, as we had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago, he said, sorry, Mom, I haven't called too much because sometimes I'm not in a good mood, and sometimes I'm still trying to figure things out. But I said, you know what? The thing is, you are figuring it out. And the fact that you went to a place that he knew one person, that's how he went out there. A friend of mine's son was out there. But you moved in with a guy that you didn't know on a chance that it might work. You went to work for somebody working construction. You've never worked construction. He worked landscaping. He's very strong, athletic, great, quick learner. I mean, you went out there on a chance, and I know you were nervous about it, but look at what you're doing. And again, it doesn't have to be like, he was so stuck with like, well, what's the rest of my life going to look like? What if I don't want to do landscaping for the rest of my life? What if I don't want to, who cares? I mean, it's hard to say that as a parent, to be like, oh, I hope he figures it out, but it really doesn't matter. Like, find something that you like now or learn it. And if it, like with you were a teacher, now you're a mindfulness teacher. So things can move. I mean, you can still be a teacher, right? But things can change in your life. And it's about finding, like you said, your passion, the things that fit for you. Let's talk a little bit, because people may not understand hypnosis, or maybe they think of like, here's the watch, follow the watch, And so tell us a little bit about kind of the basics of hypnosis, or what it is, why it works, that type of thing. I think that would be a good thing.
Sure. Well, yeah, I do get some people that, might be interested in the process, and they're worried about like doing something that they don't want to do or losing control. And that is not at all what happens. And, I think, like you said, people have this idea of stage hypnosis. Like it's a show, and that is a type of hypnosis, which is very far from the kind that I practice. And that's really more for entertainment, right? But in a therapeutic sense, or a sense like coaching and personal development or transformations, hypnosis is basically a relaxed and safe state of your nervous system. So when you are stressed and in fight or flight, you don't necessarily, things shut down, and you can't as easily connect with maybe memories from your past or your emotions. So in a state of hypnosis, you have a sense of safety and relaxation. It's not about being asleep. It's just the safe, relaxed state. And when you're in that state, you have a greater ability to connect with your emotions and your subconscious mind, which is where all of your early beliefs are stored. So we kind of get out of the logical thinking conscious mind. And the reason why that's very useful in terms of uncovering subconscious beliefs, or like you called them, I think you said the red light moments, right? The
red light
things
stories,
that are just holding us back, right? When we think about our problems, let's say, I'm having trouble in advancing in my career, I'm procrastinating, lacking confidence. When I think about this logically, I might say, well, I just need to schedule my tasks and really stay on track and do the work. And, I understand what I'm doing. I'm good at my job, but there's something that's just holding me back. And we can only rely on our logic and our willpower so much to make that change. If there is an underlying belief that I'm not good enough or that I don't deserve success, then I'm never going to be able to use my willpower enough to get to the next stage or the next phase in my career. So by connecting with your subconscious mind and uncovering these limiting beliefs, it gives you the power to, well, number one, understand where they came from, how you got them, why they're there. And then you can say, well, I'm not this 5-year-old child anymore that first developed this belief. And it's really not even true or relevant in my adult life. And therefore, I'm ready to let go of it. And when you can connect with the emotional, it's always going to win over the logic. And when you can make a change at an emotional level, then the beliefs change and the beliefs drive new positive behaviors that you do want.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's good. That's good. I went through a course, mindfulness-based stress reduction. And it just made me think of like the part that we talked about noticing. Like, I think that's what certainly hypnosis can help us uncover, and then notice, talk about when you're a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, or when you think about such and such, not getting your tasks done, what does it make you, think about? And then it's like noticing that, oh, wow, I guess I realized that my mom used to always say, well, you never get your stuff done on time. You're always a late bloomer, or whatever it is, it's those things that get into our subconscious mind. And I love, be it hypnosis or EFT, and we've talked about so many of them on this podcast. I feel like that's a big part of it, is that we can get to that point that we notice what's going on or what went on then. Like you said, you have then the opportunity to say, you know what, wow, that's not even true. And so I'm just not going to believe that anymore. And I'm going to make a different decision today. Because I'm not that little child that my dad's yelling at, or my mom's telling me that I'm can't ever do it, kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I do think that, like you said, noticing is the first step, right? Building that awareness, building the connection with what you're actually experiencing, rather than numbing or blocking or doing things, behaviors that allow you to not notice. And, we talk about addictions being a way to like cover up what we're actually experiencing. And that might be drugs or alcohol. It might be working, right? We don't always think of working as an addiction, but it for sure is a way, a mechanism, a coping mechanism that people use to not deal with what they're experiencing, right? It allows you to kind of live from the neck up and not in your body at all. There's lots of other coping mechanisms, but some of them, have the negative stigma, and others, our culture is really even just facilitating. Like we have this expectation to work hard and earn lots of money and climb the ladder of success and so forth. And, that unknowingly could be a coping mechanism to allow you to not notice.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's true.
Yeah.
And so why do you think, are all these limiting beliefs, these red light stories? Is it because of our childhood? Is that what it all leads back to, is that's how they develop? Because again, if you've listened to my podcast, for anybody that's listening, I talked about red light stories and limiting beliefs after my first dance competition. And then I did another one about my second dance competition and how my mindset was completely different and how I showed up completely different. So yeah, is it just all our childhood of how these things come into play, if you will, in our mind, that we feel like we aren't good enough or we're not smart enough, or like I don't know if you're old, how old you are, but Stuart Smiley or whoever that guy was on,
from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and people love me. So.
Yes. Well, I do think that that's the biggest factor, is our childhood. And the reason that is your conscious, logical mind, the part of your mind that processes situations in a logical way, doesn't fully develop until around 25-ish. And so when we're babies up until like mid-teens, we're experiencing the world through this part of our subconscious mind that is emotional, and it doesn't have the logical filter that can say, well, my mom seems to think that my brother is smarter than me because he got an A and I got a B, and I see that she loves him more because of that. So with that experience, we don't say, oh, well, logically, I know she loves me also, and that she doesn't think negatively of my B. But instead, we have this experience and we say, oh, well, I'm just not smart enough. I'm not good enough. My mom's love is conditional on performance. And that's how we know ourselves, right? We see ourselves and how we fit into the world through this non-logical, non-filtering mind. And so because our mind's job is really to do what it thinks we want it to do, and it's there to almost prove that those beliefs are still true, as we come into, our ability to have logic, we still are run by those beliefs that were formed before logic was available. And so in this scenario, just made up, but in this scenario where maybe I think that I'm not smart enough, or, I'm not good enough to receive love from my mom as an adult, that's how I see my experience in the world. So I'm going to see the negative. I'm going to see those instances where I feel like I'm not smart enough, rather than noticing the times where I am smart enough and I am good enough and I do receive love. So that will kind of drive my experience.
Right. Yeah. I remember going through I think it was Landmark that I did. I don't know if you've done any of the Landmark courses, but I remember one of the gals getting up and speaking, and she was talking about her relationships with men. And as she talked about growing up, she shared that there was one day she woke up and there were suitcases by the front door and her father left. Mm. And so as the gal said, what did you take that to believe? And she said, well, I believe that the men that I loved, they all left. And so she went on to have very difficult relationships with men because she never believed that they would stay. So there are those kind of things that like you said, subconsciously, we may take them on and we believe that. And then, but maybe we don't, again, we don't think about it that much. And then we were talking before we went live, like the way that we do one thing is the way we do everything. So it's kind of like, okay, that, and then you start to develop these behaviors against men or against others, or again, base our like feelings of joy on, well, I didn't perform well, or did I perform well? Did I win or did I not win? And it stems back to that years ago type of thing, which is really interesting. And the cool thing is there are ways that we can get past that. And that's, again, what you do with this hypnotherapy. I love that, you talked about affirmations and let's talk about that. Like, why do affirmations work? Just that silliness, like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and people love me. But we chuckle about that, but those are the things that they actually do work, right?
Yes, they do. And I think that to make them even more effective, the first step is to recognize the sort of opposite of what those positive affirmations are that maybe were part of your subconscious beliefs. And I like to use the analogy of gardening. And if you think about approaching a piece of grass, a part of your lawn, for example, and you think, okay, I don't want grass here anymore. I want to grow a vegetable garden. But there are steps that you need to take in order to have a productive vegetable garden. And the first part is taking up the plants that you don't want. In this case, it would be the grass, because otherwise the grass is just going to keep growing, and then it will take the nutrients and the things that it needs so that the vegetable plants don't have it. So you pull up the grass and you really have to get to the root of that plant. Otherwise, it will just keep growing. Like, you can cut the grass, but it'll keep growing. So you get to the root of the grass, and that's very similar to like getting to the root of the limiting beliefs. You take the grass out, and then you plant these new seeds that are the vegetable plants. And that's like the affirmations, the positive affirmations, right? And you do have to continue to maybe weed here and there. Like you may have little pieces of grass that show up, and you got to keep pulling them out. You got to keep doing the work to remove those limiting beliefs. But then there's this process of like taking care of the plants that you do want to grow. So that's where meditation comes into play. That's where connecting with what you're, like you said, noticing. That's the practice of noticing and nourishing the plants that you do want to grow. And that's the only way you're going to be able to really get those vegetable plants to produce vegetables. And I think that the process of getting rid of limiting beliefs and taking those positive affirmations and making them work for you will really be effective. Yeah.
I like that. That's a great visual that people can learn from. And it is even, part of that, I think, nourishing the plants, if you will, the vegetables, is that accepting what other people say about you. Say, hey, you're awesome and you're great. And a lot of times I think we say, oh, well, it's really not that big of a deal.
We deflect it.
Right. So just accepting that, or saying, thank you. I'm glad that you found benefit from whatever I did, or I'm glad that you, I appreciate the compliment or something like that. It made me feel good. So just trying to accept that, because that, I think, continues to give good nourishment, if you will, to those to those plants.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
With your work, I love to ask my guests, if there is, I love that garden analogy, but even if you have, because again, we have people listening to the podcast that are working to overcome addictions, or they're working to, improve their health. They're looking to improve their success in business. So really just looking to show up differently. And so do you have kind of an example or someone that you've helped that you can kind of talk to about how they came to you and some of the things that you offered for them that helped them, and kind of how that really then has gone on to help them?
Sure. Yeah. I try not to tell the same story over and over again, because so many of the clients that I've worked with are just I find it so fascinating, and their transformation stories are really powerful. In fact, I find myself after each session talking to my husband and saying, "Oh, it's so interesting what this person has gone through." He kind of teases me because I think everything's so interesting.
Right.
But one client that comes to mind in terms of both addiction, working on addiction, overcoming addiction, and also career, it was kind of intertwined. Like you said, what you do in one part of your life, you do in all the parts of your life. But generally, people come to see me because they have listened to some of the practices on our YouTube channel. And I think, listening to my voice over and over again for months or even years builds a bit of trust. So this woman came to me, and, she knew what I do, and she trusted me. We had like a rapport already before we even started the session. But she came to me because she was at a transition point in her career, and she was also struggling with a drinking problem that she wanted to get over or to recover from, so that she could make the changes in her career that she really wanted. And we talked about her triggers, or the situations that really play a role in both her addiction and the career changes that she was kind of stuck from. And a lot of it was just, that was what she knew. It was habitual. It was her life. That's how she interacted with her family members and her friends. And it was kind of expected that you just drink to excess. And so part of her struggle was really making a change that she felt she wouldn't be like disowned from her family, or she would still be able to have a relationship with these, people that are important to her without the drinking, and therefore be able to make the transition in her career that she really wanted. So we talked about how to go about making those changes and still feel like you could have a connection with her family. And I kind of use this analogy a lot for folks, is that when you start to make a change, you are almost inviting those around you to either make a change also, or, potentially not be part of your life, as if you're like, your life is a puzzle as a whole, and you are just one piece of that puzzle, and all of the different people that are around you, your career, your relationships, all of those are puzzle pieces that fit perfectly until you start to make that change. And then the shape of your puzzle piece changes, and either the ones around you have to also change in the way that they interact with you and know you, or you find a different puzzle piece to fit into your puzzle. But anyhow, we worked together. We understood her limiting beliefs and how they were affecting her. And I don't want to say they were causing her to drink, but they were enabling her to continue that habit. And that's why it made it so hard to stop drinking, was because this belief was driving the behavior. And like I said, you can have only so much willpower before those beliefs just take over. I always say willpower is like a muscle. It fatigues eventually if you try to rely on it too much. By changing her belief, understanding where it came from, she was able to easily stop drinking. And it was almost as if she changed the type of person that she was. She became the type of person who isn't a drinker, versus before we met, she was the type of person that was a drinker. And with that change, then she was able to start a new job, and she was able to, be successful in that new job because she believed in herself, and she had the confidence because she was able to, quit drinking, and that inspired more confidence in her as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are scary times too, when we think, again, I love your visuals, you think that you're going to make some changes, and like you said, you're inviting other people to make those changes. Although sometimes we're like, well, you should stop drinking too. That's not an inviting way to say it to someone else, but you are kind of subconsciously. And it's scary though, to think that, well, maybe my family won't like me anymore. Maybe my friends will be like, what are you doing? And like, why would you not drink? And I remember just like one day I was out to dinner with a friend, and I was on kind of a cleanse, detox, all fruits and vegetables all week, soup, salads, really great, healthy eating, but, none of the caffeine, alcohol, lots of water, just got a good reset. And I, my girlfriend and I had a dinner date. So I went out and whatever, I just didn't have anything to drink. And she could not, it was very interesting. She's just like, just have a glass of wine. I'm like, I don't want a glass of wine. I still love wine, but I'm not going to have it this week because and it was very interesting. She really had a hard time. She goes, I don't really get it. I'm like, it's just because this is what I'm doing this week. It's not changing who I am. It's just what I'm choosing. And it was interesting to see how she reacted to that, and,
yeah, I think that's probably, well, obviously it's more about her than it is about what you're doing.
Right.
And she might be a little bit fearful that you're changing, and therefore your relationship with her may also be changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little scary for people to see, close relationships around them changing. Like, like you said.
Well, and sometimes people have said to me too, that sometimes when we see something in someone else that kind of bothers us, it's perhaps a little bit of a reflection on something that's like the same thing in us. Perhaps. Yeah. I don't know.
That's very true. People are mirrors.
Yeah,
for sure.
And have you ever heard of Lou Tice and the Pacific Institute?
I don't think so.
So Lou Tice is passed, but he started the Pacific Institute. I don't know how many years ago, but he used to have different courses, and he may still have them. It's not something that I've looked into most recently, but some of my friends and colleagues in my wellness business have taken his courses, and then they've relayed some of the information. And it just seems to fit into this, in that he talks about, again, what we say to ourselves, and just things that we can say, like, it's just like me. I was thinking about your client, like, it's just like me to not have a drink, after work or whatever. It's just like having those, like saying those things. Wow. It's just like me to get to work on time. It's just like me, or it's not like me to, or even saying that to our kids. Wow. It's just like you to be right on time for breakfast, or get your backpack, or, things like that, again, those things that we can say to each other. That's almost like you said, she saw herself as a person, successful businesswoman who didn't drink. And sometimes it's those thoughts that we have, but also sometimes we can say it to ourselves. Wow, it's just like me to, to show up feeling great, not hungover, and ready to start on the day, just those kind of things. But it is that she talks about, he's very, reticular activating system, and going to bed at night and writing your things. And then your reticular activating system goes to work, all of those things. We're not going to talk about all that science today, but that's what it is. We start to say those things, and our subconscious minds starts to
It's
believe
listening.
it. It's listening.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say words are energy, and they mean things to us, right? Like the difference between, um, when you say my and then a symptom or a diagnosis, you are taking ownership of it. Like my anxiety versus the anxiety, or even the symptoms of anxiety. And it's not changing the situation at all, but it's sending a very different message to your subconscious mind, because if you have something that you're attaching ownership to, your subconscious hears that and says, oh, I want to hold on to that because it's important to you, right? Like the difference between I'm going to dinner with my husband versus I'm going to dinner with the husband. It sounds very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I think we could talk for a long time about all of this. Again, I find it very interesting too. I think that's why we clicked and get along, because I find all of this fascinating and interesting. Yeah. But we will wrap things up here. Again, really interesting things. And I think you do wonderful work and help people in lots of ways. And if people are interested in finding more and getting more of you, you have some wonderful avenues that people can find you and get things for free even before they contact you. So let the audience know how we can find you.
Sure. Probably the easiest way is our website. It's themindfulmovement.com, or all of our content for free on YouTube. You can just search The Mindful Movement on YouTube and find out. I think we probably have like 300 some videos. So lots of content to learn and practice and get to know us. And themindfulmovement.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. And when you say us, because you do some work with your husband, right? He helps you out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is my partner in life and in the business. And
yeah, that's great. Yeah. I love that. Again, that you offer those things that people can learn, as well as do some practicing too with their own affirmations or meditations and things like that. So everybody check that out, because there's some cool things that I'm still checking out as well. So any last words for our audience about what we talked about today, or, what you'd like to share with them?
I guess to try to connect with the positive in life, right? Naturally, humans are biased towards negativity as a way to, stay alive and protect ourselves. So in order to really be positive and believe in ourselves and so forth, we need to spend time connecting with what's positive. Celebrate your successes, your strengths, and the more you practice seeing what's good about yourself, what's good about your life, the more you will see what's good about yourself and your life.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. And it's definitely something that can change your life. We didn't talk about, but it is that positive. It's the gratitude, that I've talked about this before on the podcast, just finding things that you're grateful for in your day, even though it's raining here. It's nice that we're getting rain, because it was supposed to snow today, but I'm certainly grateful that it's raining, because I think there might be some snow tomorrow. So, Midwest living here. So thank you so much, Sara. It was really wonderful to have you here and to share your knowledge with my audience and get to know, have them get to know you a little bit too. So again, I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And to the audience, again, thanks always for coming back to listen. Thank you for sharing. Do know that, as you share this podcast with other people, we just have a chance to help more people know that there's hope in the world and we can have more positive than negative. And that's the way that we can really go on and live our best life. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, head over to iTunes and leave me a 5-star review. Share it with others, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I've got a tribe over on Facebook, so head over there and search for Juggling the Chaos of Recovery Podcast Tribe. And do you know somebody who has a story to share, a story of recovery and hope? please let me know, as I'd love to feature them as a guest on one of these next upcoming podcasts. And perhaps you're looking for a community of like-minded, collaborative, and supportive people who cheer each other on as we strive to improve our lives. If that sounds like something you've been looking for, schedule some time with me. You'll find the links in the show notes. Let's talk, and let me help you find your way. And I'm here to tell you that you're worth it.